Hey everybody, welcome to another Retro Game Night. I am Damien DiCarlo. I am joined with my co-host today, Michael Losi. How are you doing today?
I am doing fabulous. How's it going, everyone?
Going good, man. Going good. I see that you've made your garage a nice little mess for the show. It looks great.
Back to how I was in episode one. I'm back to the garage.
You're going OG.
Yeah.
We obviously have another person on the show today. If you are not watching the YouTube video, you will see someone as a guest on this. Till Paris, how are you doing today?
Good. Greetings, programs at Till Paris,
You,
aka Broken Arcade.
Broken Arcade. Yeah, I gotta say, I'm really excited about this show today. I decided to see where we could go with having a guest on the show, which I have not done before. We've done many different co-hosts. We've done panels at Comic Con. We just haven't actually decided to get more people that we don't know involved. So, pretty fun. I'd like to ask a little bit about yourself. Tell us, and as well as the audience, who you are, what Broken Arcade is, and let's dive into that.
Yeah, awesome. All right. Well, thank you so much for having me as first guest. So, my name is Till Paris. I live here in Carlsbad, California, in Southern California. And I would say back in 2015, I bought my first arcade game, which was a Miss Pac-Man. Holds a lot of nostalgic value. Looking for some tools online on Craigslist and ended up seeing a Miss Pac-Man. I didn't even know you could buy these things. Never really thought about it, but I have fond memories of Miss Pac-Man. So I went and bought it, totally overpaid. The thing was broken. I didn't know how to fix it. My neighbor had some tools that we could sand it down, like a belt sander and things that because it was falling apart. Long story short, I had this game, restored it from scratch through help from some people in the arcade community at KLOV, and now I was hooked. And every game since 2015, you generally find them broken. So this Broken Arcade formed. I put a Instagram page together. It had like 100 followers or something, and never thought anything of it. But I didn't really post that much. And then I started posting about all these memories I had of arcade games and sharing that with others, and it really kind of took off. I think I'm maybe up to 60,000 followers now, and it's really about sharing these nostalgic art pieces with the world. None of us are getting younger, and it's
Right.
a great thing to look back on in simpler times. So in a nutshell, that's the Broken Arcade story.
So I gotta ask, why Pac-Man, or was it Miss Pac-Man or Pac-Man?
Yeah, it's Miss Pac-Man. Yeah.
Why that one first? What made you do that?
Yeah, so it just happened to be in Craigslist at the time, but why that was a special game for me is, there was a restaurant out here called the Alpine Inn in Alpine, California. It was one of these dark steak houses with smoke, looming up from the tables. And I have a lot of fond memories of going there with my family. On Sundays, we'd go have eat dinner there, and I'd be sipping on my Roy Rogers, and my sister was on drinking her Shirley Temple, and we're sitting on a tabletop version of this Miss Pac-Man and getting a couple quarters and it was a lot of fun while we were waiting for our food,
Oh,
and
the
that's
tabletop. Oh,
yeah, the
so good.
tabletops, right?
Oh man, that takes me back. Lucy, you remember the tabletop,
Yeah,
right?
was this a two-seater or the four-seater? The square, the rectangle, or is it a
Yeah,
circle?
yeah, it's two, so one on one side and one person on the other side. There's a screen flips is when it's the next
Yeah.
player's turn. Yeah.
All right, you just took me back because Till, I'm thinking now. Of course, this is what's going to be a trip nostalgic, right? So, yeah, table just like you described, Miss Pac-Man tabletop. I think I was at a Pizza Hut, and I used to go so often, and I just was just addicted to playing Miss Pac-Man. It was just that. Something about a tabletop. I don't see those very often anymore. Is that something that is easy to repair as opposed to a cabinet, or how is that?
It's the same. I mean, it's the same insides, just they might be consolidated or put in there in a different way, but it's the same board, same stuff, really. So I wouldn't say it's easier or harder. It's about the same. Yeah, I think
Crazy.
that a lot of these games got thrown away at the later 80s. Tabletops were not, they weren't wildly popular. Pizza places somehow had some of the best games, a lot of good upright games. But then the smaller places we went to had, I mean, we used to go to a sushi shop. It was Galaga and like a tabletop Dig Dug, and maybe you'd find a Donkey Kong if you're lucky. So a
Yeah.
lot of places had these smaller games, but I just think they got, thrown away or gobbled up and they're in people's houses or storages or somewhere. But yeah, it's not like they're wildly rare, but they
Yeah,
aren't
and
as popular.
Right, and then with your skill set, I mean, Michael, you have built just like me our own cabinets before. What did you remember from when you started on this trip of building stuff? Did you remember this old stuff? Is that what it was
Well,
mainly?
just a little bit. So I just have to go back on just Till's. So I started, just doing a little diving into his history, right? I went into his Instagram. I'm like, all right, like, so what is like his deal? And I started looking at some of your posts, Till, and I was like mind blown. I'm not gonna lie, like your stuff is way like it goes deep, man. You have like some of the great things, like you said, Galaga. You got the Joust machines, the Miss Pac-Man, of course, the Donkey Kong Jr. And I'm just like, wow, this guy kind of has it all right. So one, I was thinking, all right, we got to plan a trip to go visit this guy and just have a fun happy hour, right? But two, yeah, I had so many questions because as you were saying, Damien, you probably don't know this, Till, but yeah, I have done a little bit of custom arcade cabinet building myself. I have never done any of the refurbished stuff like you have, but I did some of the the retro pie stuff,
Oh,
and
nice.
I built some of my own custom arcade cabinets for myself as well as some of my nephews and brother. And um, so when I saw your stuff, like you weren't just doing like software emulations. I don't know like how deep we can go into this, Damien, but like you're doing like hardware emulations and
Yeah.
it looks like you're really getting deep with some of the hardware with some of this
Yeah, you're
stuff.
looking at
So
chipsets and stuff. I mean, Losi, you and I haven't done that. I mean, I did the same as you. The most extensive, I think, I built my own like smaller cabinet that I thought, okay, this it might be a little too not as authentic as I remember. So I ended up buying a shelled out um, MK1 cabinet, and then I just bought an X arcade with the USB or whatever connection it was. Fit perfectly. I had to retrofit
yeah,
just a few things, but then a flat LCD, and then that's how I did it. But the marquee and everything was all original.
sure.
But that's about as extensive as I've seen a real arcade inside like cabinet. It looked really wired up and kind of crazy.
Yeah. Well, let's get it straight. I'm no genius at this stuff, but it's I have authentic original machines, but also dabble in. I've got a you know I don't know if you saw the 3D printed like NES classic NESs. So I got a retro
Oh
pie
yeah,
set up in there, and then I got a an Ambernick here. Oh, here.
there it is.
Oh
I
yeah,
Got
got
some.
one as well.
Yeah, I mean, so I'm no stranger to the emulation that way, but there's something about playing the authentic game with that CRT, and I
Right.
think it's great. Companies like Arcade One Up and I had and what is it, arcade stick? Is that what it was? What was it?
Oh,
The
X Arcade, I think it
Yeah, I
was.
had like a double one with the trackball and everything.
Trackball, right? Yeah.
That was awesome.
Mhm.
But when you see and play the original game, I think it truly takes you back. And I think that's the value. But I don't fix the PCBs. I mean, very little can I do on that. Like cosmetic stuff, wiring stuff. That's pretty easy actually. It's just following an instruction. But as far as fixing, you need a lot of tools to properly fix a lot of those older games, the
Yeah. No,
PCBs.
exactly, and that's what I was familiar with, right? It was just dealing with kind of like just the wiring of the PCB boards, and it's just straight emulations. But that's kind of the problem, right? With some of those software emulations, is you don't get that true video quality, sound quality, even some lag time with some of the controls in some of the games. And so, yeah, to see that you took the next step though, and it looks like like I said, I want to come check out your arcade sometime because it really looks like it's the real deal and something that could take you back to how it really was.
So,
Yeah.
Till, how many arcade machines do you own in your garage?
Well, I've got about 50 total, but I've got 34 or 35 depending in the garage. I have 35 right now, but it gets a little tight. It's so
How many garages
34.
do you have at your current place?
It just one. Well, it's a double garage, so I can fit. Yeah, right. It's a double wide garage or two car garage, and I've got 35 machines in there right now. And
Yeah.
it's I got a cool lighting setup, so it really feels like you're taken back. I can crank the 80s songs and with the lighting, with different LED lighting setups, you can make it feel like a lot of different places. So it's just a lot of fun. Friends and family come over, and it's we're not out
Right.
there every day, but it's a cool spot. It's definitely great to share that with others, and it's been a lot of fun. And I continue to collect, and got to share storage with another collector where we've got our spare games and a ton of parts.
Yeah, I bet. Was there an order into which you bought these? You're like, I gotta mark off my list all the ones I remember playing as a kid. Like, did you do it that way?
Yeah, they don't come up as often as, I mean, the ones that you want don't always come up nowadays. Some of the ones you want are more rare, but I have most of the ones that I remember. But yeah, I did exactly that. I had the Miss Pac-Man just off chance, so I got that, and I said, well, I'm gonna probably get a couple more. Still fit in the garage and park in here, so I can get a row off to the side. So I got Donkey Kong Jr. was one. Now I remember playing that in Chuck E. Cheese, around 83 or 84, or somewhere around there. And I always loved the artwork of Donkey Kong Jr. I don't know. I was never very good at it, but I found one in where was it? Up in Big Bear in California. I went way up. See, I'm down in San Diego, so you're looking at about a 2.5 hour drive way in the mountains.
Yeah.
And this guy had one. It came from a Chuck E. Cheese in Texas. It was from his uncle. It had been in his basement, or not, in his lower room down there for probably, he said, I don't know, 15 years. So I got it for really cheap, brought it back, worked perfect, and then started picking. I'm like, God, I remember Tron. I remember this game, remember that game. So I got a Tron. I got Paperboy, 720, Dragon's Lair. Those were some big ones on my list. Pole Position, Qbert, and these are ones that I truly remember, have a lot of nostalgia for. And then, Joust, of course, Defender. I got Defender recently, but it was Robotron, Track and Field. So yeah, I went down the list of things that I remember from childhood and just started picking them off as they came up. So it's pretty cool.
I remember,
and then some new games that I had learned about and discovered as I met other collectors that were pretty cool.
Yeah, I remember very vividly at 8 years old. I live in Los Angeles, so an arcade out here was everything in the late 80s and 90s, of course. And I remember very vividly being so impressed, and my mouth just dropped as a kid playing Tempest. And that was one that I just was like, whoa, this is the future. Like, I thought this is so cool. And playing that, when I see it to this day, obviously everyone talks about the smells in the arcade. When you walk in there, everybody remembered that certain smell, and that connects so vividly when I see these graphics played to this day. And I know that these are so linked with memory in the brain, obviously, just all this feels and the smells. Do you have any sort of memories that you can share from being a kid, like that to this day still gets you?
Oh yeah. I mean, well, I remember Tempest, and one of the places I remember playing Tempest, there's two, is Huntington Beach Pier. I'm sorry, Redondo Beach Pier. But a vivid memory is going to be at the Starcade at Disneyland. We went to Disneyland a lot as a kid, and I definitely remember playing Tempest there. But I remember when Tron came out in 1982, they had the whole wall full of Trons. You were on the People Mover, for those who remember what that is. It was like Tron themed. I mean, it was like it was so amazing as a kid, and I just hold such a fond memory of that time of getting off Space Mountain, hitting the Starcade and seeing all these Tron machines, and the whole park was themed Tron. So it was just such a surreal, cool experience. I mean, there's a lot of memories like that, but that particular one at Disneyland sticks out.
I remember that. Now that you bring up Tron, while I'm an '83 kid, I missed that whole boat because I was being born. But when they had the sequel, I'm a big fan of Tron, the original and the sequel. When the sequel came out, or they were promoting it at Disneyland, they had a whole section in the back. I don't know if you went to this. The whole arcade was just thrown back, and Tron was right in the middle, just like they had in the movie. It was the coolest thing that I could say probably was the most authentic throwback I've ever felt. Nowadays, with arcades like a Dave and Buster's or whatever, those are cool. I just do not feel anything of what the culture of what we knew as kids. And it doesn't feel that same vibe to me. It's just different. Times were different.
Yeah, times were different. I mean, back then we had to think it was the birth of arcade games. It was the birth of, we were playing televisions inside these very artistic cabinets. There was nothing like that ever. I mean, now we fit all that on our phones and our devices. And, my kid here's playing lots of games. I mean, he has an appreciation for the arcade games, but he'll never know what it's like to see those games become invented and go through it. So it's just a different feeling. And we've taken him to Dave and Buster's and places like it, but they're just, you would have to get the tail end of it. It's very hard to, have a nostalgia for something you didn't, go through. And I think that seeing these games be invented and progress is just absolutely amazing, and how it slowly went into uh, the console series that took over is just, that's wild. I mean, what
Yeah.
actually, I was curious, Michael, what other things are you building? Are you building console stuff, or are you building like upright stuff, or what do you have?
Yeah, so I've
I want
done
to
some
know your
upright
guys'
stuff for the
games
most
too.
part, and like
Yeah.
counterarcades, I would guess you could say for the most top. Yeah,
Yeah.
so yeah, just 2 players, nothing bigger than that. So they're about 2 feet wide and about 3 feet high for the most part, and I usually use a 22-inch LCD screen and yeah, hook it up to a Raspberry Pi. Was a 4. Now they're coming out with a 5. They just did. So I'm looking forward to start using that soon. But yeah,
Nice. You use
it's
the fives because of you play some modern game, or not about modern, but some of the fighting
exactly.
games
Yeah,
require more.
yeah. Yeah, some of those N64 early PlayStation games that really don't run very well on some of that legacy stuff. So
Yeah,
yeah,
they
it's
do have a hard time
really
running on
looking
that.
forward. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
To
yeah.
this day, even N64 can never really run correctly. It's crazy how certain chipsets and I don't know, hardware is just so
Yeah.
tricky with emulating.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
and Till, I had some questions for you too. Again, so before, I know you don't know too much about me, but I live in Ventura County now.
Oh, sweet.
Before I moved here, I lived in Orange County, and right down the road from me was this place called Captain's Auction Warehouse.
Oh yeah.
I don't know. Yeah, I'm sure you've probably
I
have
bought
heard of
plenty
them.
of games from there. Yeah.
That's what I'm assuming, right? So this is like was known as like the place to buy arcade machines, and yeah, like I said, it's an auction warehouse, right? So it's like the highest bidder, and it's that's how you get it. And yeah, what's
Yeah.
your experience with that?
Yeah. So let's touch on how to get these games, because that's like one number one question people always ask is, okay, that's great, you have all these. Now how do I get one? And
Right.
how much are they, and where do I get one? And what do I look for? So the places that I get games, like most people, will Craigslist, OfferUp, Facebook groups now, Facebook Marketplace, garage sales, arcade auctions, and a website called KLOV. That's where it started for me. It's a giant community of collectors. There's a lot. It's a giant resource. That's a little bit, or a lot of people from there have moved into Facebook groups. But those are some great resources to find in games, and specifically Captain's Auction. Chris over at Captain's Auction has just really taken that business to the next level. I really commend him for what he's doing. Now, prices aren't as cheap as you might want them to be nowadays, but it does go to the highest bidder, and it's just opened up a lot. And I think it's opened up a lot of people's eyes to, whoever wanted to collect, they now have an opportunity. I bought a tapper from there a few years back, and it was in beat up shape, but yeah, it's great. You can bid online, and then go pick your game up, or have it shipped even now. So it's a great white glove service that they offer there. There's auctions all over the country, Texas as well as East Coast. Texas sometimes has some really good gems for really cheap, but the deals are out there. You don't have to spend $2,500 on a Miss Pac-Man, because you can if you'd like to, maybe even more, but that's not necessary. You'll see a lot of, I don't want to go too far down. We'd probably pick up the topic later, but those are some of the best places to get games, as I mentioned. And it's things to look for when you're getting in this. Does it work? Is it something I have to fix? And if you are going to take a game home, make sure you have some kind of resource to fix it or deal with it. Some guys are saying, "Oh, the monitor broke, so I like sold it for $100." It's like, it's not that hard to fix the monitor. You can ship out the chassis. They're just little things you want to prepare for if you're going to be getting an old game, just as be getting an old car. You can want to
Yeah,
have some contingency for that.
I
And
think
it's
that's
not like, I don't know how electricity works, but just like a lot of us, but you can hire someone, and it's not too expensive to fix some of the problems here. So
yeah, no, I think that's all good to know, because that's probably one of the first questions I get asked is, how did you get started with this? Like, how do I get started? Right. And I feel like, yeah, that is it's not an easy answer really. And, but yeah, some place like that I could imagine would be a great place to just at least get your foot, get a good footing of, okay, this is what I need to expect. This is kind of what it costs. And maybe it's okay for me to try to do this on my own. Maybe I can find this to be a little bit more feasible.
yeah.
And as you mentioned, it's actually really not that hard to get really started in this hobby. It's all it takes is really some refurbishing, right? Of just finding You know, one person's trash is another person's treasure, right? Isn't that the saying?
Exactly. And if you're really looking to have something done for you, you can go to someone like Gene up in Glendale at Vintage Arcade Superstore. I think, yeah, I think it's Vintage Arcade Superstore. Now you'll get a Miss Pac-Man or a Dig Dug or a 720. You'll pay a premium for that, but you're getting a game that's in perfect working order. It's been restored and it's under warranty. I mean, so which is tough that these games are so old, but he guarantees that stuff. So that's another route you can go if you don't want to mess around with, you know, fixing anything. You just go right in and say, hey, I'm looking for a Tron. He'll either have one or he can put parts together and build one. So there's places like that throughout the United States as well that you just have to make sure they're reputable and selling like authentic parts and not just a multi-board with a CRT or something like that. So
So when it comes to purchasing one and then you're diving into a deal, let's just say you get some chipped paint or your marquee is just totally just messed up. Is there a resource for that that you go to buy, or is it something you print yourself or to redesign? How do you go about that?
yeah, good question. So there's two, let me just take it a step back real quick. There's two modes of thought. I either want that chip because that's the patina and that the games are only original at once, or I want this thing to be restored because it's so beat up like that Miss Pac-Man. So here's some resources that I go to. They make pretty much replacement marquees, side art. You can get a lot of reproduction parts. It's a great time to arcade because there's smart people, engineers making like the most rare joysticks and things that you could never get. And you'd have to beg other seller or other collectors, please sell me your extra food fight joystick or something. Now there's people that are remaking these and just at it from passion. But some of the places I go to get parts and artwork, one specifically for artwork is Phoenix Arcade. Darren over at Phoenix Arcade is great. Stephen Gregory over at arcadeshop.com. Some great FPGA multi-boards, which we should probably get into as FPGA in a bit. Some parts, also a little bit of artwork. Peter over at Arcade Parts and Repair, high-end replacement parts, especially like cap kits or electronic parts. He has some great stuff. Not there, you can get cheaper caps for doing a cap kit on some of the boards, but he has the good stuff. So, and it really makes a difference because so those are some of the top places I buy from. Also, Mike's Arcade. He actually fixed a Donkey Kong for me recently. They specialize in Nintendo stuff. So those are some of the places that I frequent, purchase from every other week. You know, always needing something.
What are some of the rare parts still that you can tell me that when something breaks, you're like, oh shit, it's the X, Y, and Z? Is there one right now that you can think of that's just like that? I really, really can't do anything about this, or it's really hard to get a hold of?
Yeah, there's specialty chips on some of the boards that if they go out, it's you have to take it from another board. Now there's guys now X-raying those old chips because you can't get into them and then remaking them, but there's not a whole lot of those out there. But there's there's a couple of Atari boards that have that issue that they're solving, specifically a Williams game, Joust, Robotron, Defender. There's this one chip that goes out. It's happened to me 3 times in the Joust. And I found another one of these. It's a mini board. It's a specific chip on there and it goes out. And then once it goes out, there's no replacement. It's like, that's it. And so I had to go find another one of those on eBay, and it's not too expensive, but they're not going to last forever. They made a lot of Williams games, you know, a lot of Joust and Robotron, but it's something that becomes challenging like if that part's not there anymore, or if you have a rare game, like I've got a Stunt Cycle. So, or any of the old 70s games, there's not a whole lot of people who work on those boards. So that some of those go bad. That might be sitting for a long time, you know.
Right.
And Food Fight specifically, that joystick was extremely difficult to come by until very recently. I did get a replacement joystick because I didn't have one. I putting all the pieces together, and I had to wait probably 2 years to find a joystick. I was asking around for a while before I found one. Now that there's guys who sell them, but
Right.
there's lots of games like that are more rare, and it's very difficult to get the parts, if not impossible. And you have to try to fabricate something on your own. You know,
Right. That's
Yeah.
pretty crazy. I mean, for me, I always wondered how someone like you would go about finding these parts, and I can only imagine what kind of a scavenger hunt you're in for. Is it something that you would do more of, or are you kind of capped out with how many you want? Is this about it?
Yeah, that's the problem with this. It's a more problem is pretty much where it's at.
You're
You just
Yeah,
addicted.
just need another garage, right?
yeah,
That's
need
all.
another garage. Well, we'll be moving from this place soon, and I will be getting a larger place for the games. But it also begs the question: it's so many people have asked about why don't you create an arcade or make a museum? Because I got about 50 games I could throw in there, and I know enough people where I could probably get another 25 to 50 games in there quickly to get 100 going. But do I
Right.
really want to be an arcade guy, or is
Right.
that really I want to steer things? Potentially in a museum environment, I thought that'd be very cool. Also have console stuff. It'd be great to have
Right.
Atari and then PS1s and just go up through the time so everyone can share into it and make it an experience, not like a barcade. So I thought that would be interesting, but that'd also be a self-funded, deal that I don't know how popular that would be. So do I want
Right.
to get more games? I want to have more games, but do I have everything I need? I think I picked off just about all my childhood favorites. There's one more. Actually two that I really want.
Tell
One, I
us what it
believe
is.
it's a Cheyenne from 1984. It's the cowboy and Indian game. You might have seen
Okay.
it that has the gun on the front, or you might have remember the game Crossbow. So these are it's an old school light gun game. So you're aiming at the screen,
Got
and
it.
the Cheyenne's the cowboy and Indian one. It's not always Indians, but you're out catching the bad guys, and it's has an old time piano player in one of the scenes. And there's 4 different scenes you go through. It's that game I remember playing at Redondo Beach Pier. Have a lot of fond memories of that game. My uncle like lifting me up playing. I just thought it was so neat. That and a game called Skydiver, which is wildly rare, but not very popular. So I did locate one back east. The guy had two of them. He got them in a barn somewhere, and he's going to give me the more broken one. But it's been about 6 months. He has it. It's stacked back. I hopefully I can get it, but we'll see. But I did get the Cheyenne. I found that in Texas, and hopefully that'll get here next week. So we'll
You're
see.
going through this nostalgic, like, holy grail hunt.
It's part of the fun of it. You get to meet really cool people like you guys and chat about this stuff
Yeah.
and reflect about some really cool, simpler times. But you also, it's like solving a problem. I need to find this piece, and the more people you can help other people out too. I've given away a lot of parts. I've sold a lot of parts. Not sold a lot of games, but got a lot of
That
parts
that's
out
Tell
there.
tell me what that's like in your experience. Till like you're part of this gaming community. You're very much intertwined with businesses and the culture. What fond memories do you have of that so far? What's that like?
The culture. So it's a lot of big kids. There's a lot of personalities. It's like any group. You get a bunch of groups together or a group together. You have some that are very pleasant and some that aren't very pleasant, and it seems to be a trend. I think it's with anybody. You find really
Yeah.
genuine people that are just authentic, and you find some that are very unpleasant that want to let you know. It's a little bit polarized. I like meeting everyone in the community. I don't care if they're building emulation games from scratch, or they're a diehard. They want everything totally original and a purist, and I think it's all great and neat. I think it's a little bit of a bummer if you bought like an original, mildly rare cabinet and you gut it out and slap a TV in there. I mean, I'm not against it. You do what you want with your games, but we're not. Those games are only here for so long, and we're running out of cabinets. But the community itself is great. I've got a lot of support from the community. I've learned to be very supportive. If I have extra stuff, don't hoard it. You can hoard it, but you might want to share it with someone who really that might be their favorite game. So if you can help someone, I think that's what it's all about. And I've been showing a lot of gratitude and been showing a lot of friendship to this. People have been really cool to me, so I kind of share that, and that's the vibe I like to put out there. And I think that's what it was about, and that's what I remember. It was a fun time, so I like to keep it fun, you know. But if you look for the bad, you'll always find it. But most people I run into, they're awesome. They're great.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
I was kind of curious about we were talking about some of the parts and stuff, and where you sell it off, and of course, some of these are really rare. In my experience, it seems like you have to go two routes when it comes to arcade cabinets. You either go American style or Japanese. Do you have a preference on the parts availability? If someone is to get started, what would you recommend?
I mean, if you're gonna regardless of where the parts come from, if you're looking to get started, I would get something you'd be passionate about. Maybe you would like the game 1943. Maybe Mortal Kombat's the game you remember. Maybe it's a certain Street Fighter iteration, or maybe something newer. But make sure you're passionate about it, because it's not if, it's when, especially with these older games, they're going to break. So if you're passionate about it, you'll be more apt to try to find the parts. And there's a lot of people on eBay, but also, like I said, KLOV or any of the Facebook groups. I think Facebook groups is a fantastic resource for finding, some of these niche parts. You also find a lot of the engineers making stuff, like guys like you and me or all of us that come together. Okay, we're going to create this kind of rare part and release it to the community, of course, for sale a lot of times, but it's cool that people take their day jobs and turn it into a resource for the community. So you're going to find the part wherever you can find it, but it's just going through those resources, which kind of brings to the topic of FPGA. And there's the Mr. project. There's a lot of projects out there. Specifically, you brought up, Michael, how software emulation is, there's a lot of lag. Or if you're used to a certain game, you're going to get a lot of lag. The sounds are kind of wonky, and it's just not that experience. FPGA is more of a hardware emulation. Maybe you can fit, I don't know, the best way to describe this. Maybe on a Pac-Man PCB, you can only have like 50 paths to the processor, where on an FPGA board, you have millions or a million. And any tech heads out there, don't beat me down for this, just generalizing here. So you have millions of paths, which means that I can put like a Miss Pac-Man, I can code for Miss Pac-Man. I'm basically re-engineering the game to work on FPGA. So it's hardware emulation. So if it used you're emulating the hardware of these types of chips, these ROM chips, this processor, and there's world record players that can't tell the difference. So it's fantastic, which is also an amazing way to preserve these games. And that's some of the mission of the Mr. project, which is all FPGA based. There's people picking off different games, like I'll take Pole Position, I'll take this one, and to try to preserve these and dump these into an environment where they can live on. Because let's face it, these boards, when you asked, what happens when they're gone? I mean, there's boards out there that they're gone, they're done. So you can fix them so many times, but when they're in the FPGA environment, a lot of them play it very authentically, and it's very convincing. Now, to a purist, that would be pure evil, and don't mention it. But the fact is that to have this live on to other generations to experience it, I think this is going to be one of the ways that it's experienced. So, and actually, the Williams game, I've got a Defender and a Robotron that's using the J-Rock FPGA. It plays Defender, Splat, Bubbles, Joust, Robotron, Stargate, and they're all in there. And it's not like getting like a Pandora's box, which I have, by the way, but it's next level. If you play the difference, it's amazing. It plays really, it just plays just like the original. I have the original board in there, and I could plug this in, and you can't really, well, I can't, but you wouldn't really tell the difference,
Right.
So.
That's amazing when you come to preserving something. I think of so many historical artifacts and archaeology and what they do to dig it up. And I know that these are just video games, but I mean, we're talking about things that we'll never see again. I mean, we're talking about where people have gotten NES, collectors, that NES box that's still mint, and just to see that, and that you'll never see that again, and that any other form of preservation is just shrink wrap it, put it in a box, or seal it somehow. I can't imagine doing this with an arcade machine, since obviously given the size, but I think that I would say you probably take really good care of it when you're in and around your garage, as far as drinks or any kids that might come over to start playing it.
Well, I mean, the videos, the games, let people go, your games look brand new, but if you were there, you'd see the chips and the problems, if you will, or the beatings that they've taken. Some are restored, but a lot of them I've left how they are. But we open the garage every Halloween for the neighborhood, and we have a great neighborhood here, and people have been coming for the last like 8 years. It's been pretty cool, because when I started opening it up with just a few games, and now we're the arcade house, and it's never open any time of the year. That's the only time we open it. So it's a lot of fun. And people are really respectful. They're more in awe that they kind of get a vibe. It's not like I'm standing over. I'm like, wait a minute, watch out. Hey,
Right,
It's
right.
they just kind of know that this is a cool environment. These are special. Their parents are also going like, oh my god, it's Paperboy or Defender, so they get to
Right.
share with their kids. So people get the feeling like this is something interesting, like you talked about at it's Starcade. It was like you wouldn't want to mess with the machines, even if you're with or a kid that's there. You know, you just get a vibe that it's something you wouldn't do. And no one's ever been disrespectful. I'm sure those, someone's going to carve "I love you" in one of these plastics or the glass if I open up a real arcade. But um,
Did you put them all on free play for them, or did you a little money?
yeah, right. I just make them pay at the door, just to enter. Then they can
You
put
want to
their
play Miss
coins in.
Pac-Man? Five
Yeah,
dollars.
Oh, your
Yeah.
your arcades are beautiful. I mean, just look at that picture of your background right there. It's just like, yeah, I mean,
So
it's
the picture
fabulous.
is at your garage.
Oh, actually, I
no,
think it's live because I see Pac-Man going. Actually,
it is
yeah,
going. It's
Oh yeah, you're right.
I'm in my studio here, but it's that's downstairs. It'd be too loud down there. I've tried to do podcasts from down there. I've been guest on shows, and Popeye just goes off continually. It's a rad aesthetic. So now I just put a video up. But
okay,
that's what's downstairs for me. Um,
yeah.
but yeah,
No, I
Very
noticed
cool, man.
they are some of the
Love
older
this.
ones. I'm so I'm not gonna lie. I feel like I'm the young guy here, right? So for me, it was Sunset Riders. It was, of course, the
yeah,
Mortal Kombats and the
Sunset
Street
Riders.
Fighters, and yeah. Do you have any of those? Just curious.
yeah. I've got Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, which also
Oh,
plays
perfect.
Sunset
That's
Riders
right up
and
my alley.
Simpsons.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yes. And Simpsons. Thank you.
Yeah,
Yes.
Yeah.
that's one I had. Simpsons. Well, the story about that is my buddy said, "Hey, there's this Sunset Riders at a construction site. The guy doesn't want it. He's going to throw it away." And he sent me a picture, and I'm like, "Oh my god, throw it away! I want that. Can you grab that?" And it was Apple Valley, and so it's over the mountain there from you
Yeah.
guys, kind of far. And so he picked it up, brought it to me, and it had the monitor, but the control panel was all jacked up, and it really just had a paper insert of Sunset Riders. Obviously, people had painted black on the side. It was probably a million different games. So I wanted a Simpsons really bad. I collected all the parts for Simpsons. I remember playing Simpsons at Mission Beach down here in San Diego. Grew up going to the roller coaster, and that Simpsons was in the corner arcade there, and I played it a lot right across from Hamill's skate shop. So we get this Sunset Riders, which it really wasn't. Didn't even have a board in it. So I say, okay, I'm going to strip all the paint off to see what it was. The first layer of paint, it was a Mortal Kombat. And then the next layer of paint, it was like some kind of fighting game I didn't know. The next layer was, and this is artwork that you can peel off, but it's going through the layers. You're putting what's called citrus strip. It's this orange stuff that eats away at the sides, but only one layer at a time. And then it finally got down to the last layer, which was Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. That was the original. And I said, you know what? Looking at this, because Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles only had one speaker, and I realized that's what this cabinet is, because Simpsons has two, and the marquee's a little bit tilted. So I said, I'm going to restore this authentically back to its own glory of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. So that's what I did. But I also made sure I bought the Simpsons board, which I already had, but Sunset Riders is also an awesome game. So I have those. I could put them in as a switcher, but I just switch them out manually. And so sometimes I'll keep it on Simpsons or the kid really loves Sunset Riders. That's one of his favorites, and that's a sweet
Nice.
game. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's such a classic. When she said the Sunset Riders, Mike, I was like, man, yeah, the good memories of that.
Yeah.
Before we wrap up, I definitely think it's a very appropriate question, very appropriate that we all say our most favorite arcade game. And I'm going to start with you, Till. Till, you need to take this here. What is your most favorite? Just
Yeah,
your absolute most favorite.
I don't have one, but there's five. It's going to be Tron, Star Wars, Miss Pac-Man, and Pole Position. Those are the ones that just that really stick with me.
Losi, you got to tell me your favorite, or multiple if you have multiple.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, I was gonna say that is so hard, man. Why are you gonna just do one? Obviously I just said Sunset Riders, but Simpsons was up there as well. How about Super Off-Road or
There you go.
Bust a Move? I don't know. I was a geek. I was so
Yeah.
good at Bust a Move. I used to love
Bust a
that
Move was a
game.
lot of fun. Yeah.
Yeah.
Something about Bust a Move. I remember going to in Thousand Oaks. I used to live in Thousand Oaks, Ventura County, and there was a place called Chewy's where they had a Bust a Move there, and that's all I played. every time I went there for like family dinners or hangouts. It's just like bust a move. That's all it is. Some of these arcade games are just so wrapped into like the place we were at, whatever spot that was, a Pizza Hut or like a,
Oh, I was gonna say there's always pizza places. Yeah, it was
pizza
like, what was the
places always
lowest
had
pizza?
them.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. They always had
Yeah.
them. Yeah. Okay. I'm going to definitely say it's two that Till mentioned, my absolute all time favorites. It's only two. I'm going to say Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles and The Simpsons. Those are the only two
Great.
that I would truly, truly kill to get my hands on. I would love to have those cabinets. They're just amazing. And
Can I
they're just
ask
beautiful artwork. Like the artwork in the marquee is just gorgeous.
Yeah, they're nice cabs for sure.
I wanted to ask Till a question too, because I feel like this is something he might be well versed with. And because I'm always whenever I travel, whether it be like Vegas or somewhere, I'm always trying to find where's the cool arcade place to see. Do you know of any cool arcade places, maybe in Southern California or in
That's a good question.
San Diego area?
Yeah, that's a great question. Sadly, no, not because they don't exist. It's just I'm not aware of them.
Yeah.
I'm friends with some people on Instagram. One guy in particular has a place in LA. I haven't been there, and I'm not sure where in LA. He's got a few machines. He's got a Paperboy and some also some modern games too. But the places that am aware of, one is no longer, and you've got Fun Stop back east, and of course you have this was in Eagle, Idaho. It was called Grinkers, and this guy had every game from the 70s to the 80s, and he had, I think, Simpsons, a Mortal Kombat, a Street Fighter, and a Turtles, and that's it. And it was all old school games, and they were in pristine condition, 100% original. It was like walking into a time machine. And unfortunately, COVID took that place out. But we'd go out there and do tournaments out there. But places now, I mean, Fun Spot back east is museum quality. You've got the pinball museum, I think in Vegas. You had the one in Banning that closed, and that would have been a gem. But up where we're at or down here, it's a lot of barcades. There's some really cool pinball machines. Pinball is absolutely amazing. Love pinball. We'll get a pinball sometime. Need more space. More a video game guy, but pinball is great. A lot of pinball places around here. Trying to think. It's a tough question for me. I don't have a good answer besides some of the larger ones.
Yeah. Barcades, I'll just say right now, they're cool, but they just don't. It just doesn't hit the same vibe. It just doesn't. And there's actually a lot where I live here. I live near the financial side district of downtown LA, and if you go venture down towards like the arts district, there's a few barcades that are pretty nice. It just, again, it's just not the right. This doesn't feel the same. It's not the same feel, and I think it's just the type of people that, not that they're bad people that show up. They're just, couples and whatnot hanging out, but it's not really quite the arcade feel as it is more of a bar feel. And I feel at that point, hey, I could probably just emulate this at home. I want to see the 80s neon signs. I want to have the sounds at full crank. I want the actual 25 cents to be, accurate, all of that. So
that
I don't know, one day we'll have to.
Yeah, that gives it that's the authentic feel. That's what we know and love. That's what we remember. And that's why I thought that if you put a place that's like literally outside, the building might be drab or not, and you walk in and it's literally transformed back in time. I think those are almost like a theme place, like you would see it at Disneyland. To that level, I think would be pretty cool.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I'll speak for all of us when I say, Till, we all want to be you when we grow up, okay? So we definitely want to. Losi, according to his wallpaper in the back, he has a lot of cleaning up to do before you can be a barcade person or an arcade there. But definitely love that. We'll definitely have to connect again and talk and maybe game together. That'd be a lot of fun. You're within our area, so you're not too far.
Yeah, you guys will have to come down. I didn't realize you're both in SoCal. You have to. I mean, you're at most a couple hours away at most with minimal traffic. You guys have to come down and we'll do a live stream down here. I go live every Saturday, so that'd be pretty sweet.
Till, thank you so much for being with us. It's been an awesome pleasure to get to know you and all of your stories of collecting and all the painstaking process you needed to do to create your own arcade.
Yeah, it's a process. Well, thank you so much for having me, Michael, Damon. I appreciate it. It's always great to share the message and reminisce about the good old days, right?
Before we go, I want to ask you, Till, where can folks find you on social media and your website or however you want to plug in what you do?
Yeah, sweet. So my primary account is off Instagram. It's Broken Arcade. On TikTok, it's Broken_Arcade, and YouTube. I don't post as much. Well, we'll be posting more. That's Broken Arcade. So you can pretty much find me in any search on the top platforms. And website is brokenarcade.com, which links to some stuff that I sell items in the store. I've got some old throwback T-shirts. Like I've got this Wizard of War shirt.
Nice.
Super like Wizard of War. There's stuff like that you can find. I've got. You remember the old Atari patches? I don't know if that's coming up here. Yeah. It's kind of blocking out. So if you're a kid who had an Atari 2600, you got a good score on Pitfall, you'd send right into Atari and they'd send you a patch. So I've got some reproduction patches and the letter that I'm going to be selling. So there's stuff like that. But yeah, those are my socials and website. And yeah, come and join me if you're into the 80s arcade nostalgia. Let's hang out. And I go live every Saturday at 7 p.m. Pacific time on Instagram.
Sweet. Love it. Got to visit that store. Losi, where do we find you on social media?
You can find me at Michael_Losi. But if it's next Saturday, I might be at Till's house. And last I saw, this guy had like some like world records
at the door.
or something too. So like, yeah. So yeah, it just depends on where. But yeah, that's where you'll find me at on Instagram. But again,
probably DM him first. Yeah.
Yeah. But seriously, Till, thank you so much. Like, this is a pure pleasure of mine. Like talking to you tonight, I thought I learned a lot of insight and knowledge. And yeah, man, I think this was awesome. I can't wait to have you again with us.
Yeah,
do it.
Yeah, thanks for that. Same. Same.
All right, you can find me at Damien_DeCarlo, RetroGameNightPodcast.com unanimously. Until next time, everybody, keep calm and game on. Good night, everybody.